let's give a warm welcome to Kristen Crockett.
Wow, hi everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. I was remembering as we were doing the Wow 30 Seconds and seeing you guys go, I was like, I remember that. And I remember being such a safe place to be able to speak about my business. And I've got a tremendous amount of gratitude for Engaging Speakers, for Gail Brown, who I had no idea how to tell everybody about the coaching that I did. I'm like, I reprogrammed the unconscious mind for people to have success. And Gail was like, okay, well, why don't we have lunch? It turns out people don't want to be reprogrammed, Kristen. And I'm like, but it's the best thing ever. When you get reprogrammed, you have this freedom and it's so great. So, and today is 13 years later that I've been a coach and that I made the leap from corporate America to be a coach and an entrepreneur. And I do want to say this before I really get rolling. Last night, one of my clients, friends, and fellow Engaging Speaker attendees, April, had showed me my logo for Courageous Destiny that I'm not unveiling because I couldn't figure out how to copy and paste it and all that, and it was like 9 o'clock at night. But when you see somebody listen to you and you see somebody hear you the way April did, and the way everybody has listened and heard me over the years and how things have evolved, it's really pretty stunning. So thank you, April, for the amazing logo, which I can't wait to unveil, maybe next time. So this is where it all started. I'm a mom of triplets. Now they were a little younger in this picture. They're now 18 years old. But I've had quite the experience over the years being a mom to the triplets. And when the triplets were like 5 years old, I had a very interesting experience. I woke up because if anybody has little ones, and you have one little one, there's a lot of changing diapers, a lot of feeding, a lot of doing that kind of thing. And then when you're working in corporate America and you're a head sales consultant for a company, that can also take a lot of work. And I had this experience where I woke up and I said, where am I? I do not know where I am anymore or who I am. And I complained to the right person. I complained to a friend of mine that was actually like this Renaissance woman. She was very dynamic. She was a yoga instructor. She was a handy woman. She was the head of our business development team at the company that I worked for. And she said, my brother's a coach. And I go, oh, your brother's a coach. Now I need a coach. I'm like, do you have any idea what I'm growing through here? I like to say growing through now.
Yeah.
But it was so hard and I felt so stuck and I felt that amount of change that would need to occur for me to be in a different place was absolutely impossible. There was no way it was going to happen. But in that impossibleness, I found a lot of things. I did hire a coach. I had learned how to shift my mindset. I had learned how to shift perspective. And I learned how to do things like naturally and intuitively go from where I was at that company to triple my sales and to get really amazing results fast. And I thought, if I can do this, gosh, that means anybody can. So what is your courageous destiny? So today, after 13 years of evolution, I've created this cool company that I love every day, and it is Courageous Destiny, which is everything that you want in your business and life. So why am I emphasizing you? Because so many times we are creating our lives unknowingly around what everybody else wants of us. what our identity is to everybody else. And it's hard to stay grounded in what we want, and it's hard to get present to what we want in our life. 95% of the way that we think is not conscious to us, which means that we were all just in big trouble at the same amount. But we got 5% to create and generate results with. That's our consciousness. What's cool about this 5% is that it can create really cool results in life. It can override anything that's going on in our unconscious mind. But if we don't have that awareness that we can't override the things that are happening unconsciously, our nervous system can go crazy. We can react to things. We can avoid doing things like sales, which is why I'm here today. So how do you be your sales success, right? You have to use your 5% to recreate what sales means to you, and your 5% to generate new results with on purpose. So I work with a process. It's very simple, and I have been told in this room so many times, never leave with your process. So just a warning to everybody. Like, that took me 5 years, so I want to make sure I share that with you. Do not leave with your process. But I'll share my quick one with you. So the DARE process is to design what your business is going to look like, or your sales is going to look like. Align action to the design. Rewire anything in the mindset that really isn't moving you forward toward what you want in your business. And then as you get further along, expand, and I like to add, with gratitude. Because once we start seeing what we can do as we grow, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, and we want to expand. So as we start to press that override button more and more and more, we're like, oh my gosh, what else could I do? What else could I do with that 5% of consciousness? So things that I got from daring myself. I'm here today. Yay! I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for daring myself to do this. I've had many friends along the way. I created myself into a speaker. This was not normal. I was the girl who actually did presentations in technology company, like all the, all the in the throat, all of it, right? I was that person. But as I started to design what I wanted, and then I started to align action, I started doing things to help me create different results in my life. And because I pushed the envelope, I was able to do a lot of things. I love the word limitless, because limitless isn't to me about, oh wow, I just jumped out of an airplane, That can be limitless. But to me, it's more like I'm just not going to let it stop me. If it's what I want, if it's in the way of what I want, there's got to be a way. If somebody else has that thing that I want, then there has to be a way for me to do it. And to me, that's limitless. And then others who have gone through my DARE process and coaching with me, we've walked on fire. I've walked on fire. I like to put the scrubbing of the brain, right? Because there's a lot of decisions that we make about who we are and the way the world works that doesn't move us forward toward what we want. So it's important to take some inventories. I've helped people get to the weight they want. I've helped other people become fully self-expressed. And guess what? When people become fully self-expressed, what becomes available to them? They can speak. They can do things they never thought they could do because they're not so afraid to hold back anymore. So let's start with the design. So if you do not, when you are designing your sales, so this is be your sales success, okay? If you are going to, if you want to elevate your sales, you have to be clear what you want. If you are not clear on what you want, what your goals are, all of those things, how many clients you want, the kind of clients you want to work with, all of those things, if you do not have it in your brain how, what it looks like, it's very difficult to align action to it. How do I know if I need to go to a networking event or if I need to get on LinkedIn? Do I want a local client? Do I want somebody who's global? How do I want to grow and elevate? If I don't know what my design is, it's very difficult to align action. So I always have to start with that. And I think I even heard Louis, I'm not sure where Louis is, but I heard Louis say earlier today, with Heather, right? Visualize, right? We want to be able to visualize the success that we want to attract to us. We want to be able to visualize what we're like in the sales process, what it's like communicating with our ideal client, what it's like when we are having a conversation and we're making a difference for our client is like one of my favorite things to visualize. Because what happens when I visualize that, I get really excited and my heart opens up big and wide. And when I think of the kinds of, when I can visualize what's really important to my client and I visualize them actually achieving that, I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to hold back at all because I want that for them and people feel that. And so one way to really advance your sales right away is to be able to get really clear on what your vision is and what your design is on what you want. If you don't have that, it's really hard. So, and it's no problem because if you're not where you want to be and you don't have that, you can work on that right away. And that's really important. Align action. When I think of align action, I don't necessarily think of hustle action. I don't think I have to do 2,432 things a day in order to get the sales that I want. If I think that way, I'm never going to try to connect with people. And I think that people get a certain vision of what sales looks like for them. And because they have that preconceived notion that 95% of the way that we think, if I say the word sales, I can't tell you how many people shudder, like visibly shudder, like, ugh, I hate that word, I'm not in sales. I'm like, do you own a business? They're like, yes. I'm like, you're in sales. I'm sorry, you're in sales. You can call it enrollment. You can call it, whatever you want, but you're still in sales. So the first thing you need to do is you need to understand that you get to define sales and what it means to you into something that motivates you, not something that is dirty and stresses you out. So I always love to say, aligning action is to be that version of you now that might even like sales. So if you design something new for yourself that motivates you and inspires you, you can align action to that instead of I'm sorry if I have any car salesmen in here. Do I? Okay, that's okay. But you don't want to, like, so many people will be like, I don't want to pressure people. I don't want to seem too pushy. I don't want to this. I don't want to that. And I'm like, you don't have to. You can actually be your version of sales right now and align action to that. And take some time for yourself to do that. Because if you have a barrier between you now and selling, you're going to have fewer clients. You're going to have less success. And what makes me sad is to think about people who have big hearts and really cool things to share, not being able to really share them freely in the world because of something like the way they feel about the word sales. So, rewire. So what happens when we're not willing to take action? Does anybody have an experience where they put off sales actions?
All the time?
Yeah. I had, when I was originally being coached to be a coach, I didn't do much cold calling in corporate America. I always figured out a way to make them warm. Always, always. And I was coached to have 51 conversations a day, and if I did that for 3 months, and by the way, that's not outreaches, that's conversations. So 51 conversations a day, then I would be successful. Guess what? Guess how many times I did that one? 0. I do not coach that today, thank goodness. I wouldn't do it. But it was a limit for me, right? And I did find another way. And really, that coaching led me to where I am today, because I would rather talk to 50 people once a day than talk to 51 individual people all day long. So, but I had to be aware of that, and I had to find a solution, right? So rewiring isn't necessarily about identifying something that's in our path and doing and making ourselves do it because it's the right thing to do. It's about finding a pathway that will work for us. So one of the things that I said to myself, my rewire was, I'm incredibly resourceful in finding clients. So I stopped this pressure of having to make all these phone calls, and I started finding my own way, and I started navigating. But before I did that, by the way, that whole thing took me 1.5 years, and my house was never so clean because I avoided that action like the plague. I highly recommend finding that out about yourself earlier than I did. So I always love to show this chart because one easy way to sales is to elevate your vibe, to feel really great. And this is actually a chart by Stephen Hawking in his book, Power versus Force. And what happens is a lot of people stay in the lower frequencies. Fear, sales can cause fear. They don't want to be rejected. Sometimes they feel guilty because they are doing things like cleaning the house for 1.5 years, right? Instead of taking sales actions. So what I love to do consciously with my 5% is to create and elevate my frequency or my vibe. So like your top consciousness, so your top frequencies are like joy, love. That's why I always say be love, be grateful. Because if you practice gratitude, you're getting up here really quick. You can get up there really quick through gratitude. And if you infuse that into the sales cycle and you infuse that into conversations with your clients, you're going to naturally see how quickly people will remember you. And why is that? Because people remember people that make them feel good. So infusing love and gratitude in sales, to me, is a really critical point. Now, on the lower side, we've got fear, grief, guilt, apathy, shame. Now, curiously enough, my company is named Courageous Destiny. Courage is not at the top, but it is in the middle. And I think that sometimes when we're in this fear, grief, apathy, and guilt and shame, it takes courage to get up there and practice gratitude. And that's why I talk about it so much. I gotta tell you, I am so excited to have Joy in the audience today because we had a one-on-one years ago, and I told her my company name, and she said, oh, well, Cour is French for from the heart. And then from the heart, rage, destiny. So if I have the courage to get up into love and to practice gratitude, by the way, the highest frequency is peace and enlightenment. So those are the higher frequencies. But I think with gratitude, I can get up there to love really quick and feel really good about what I'm doing. Guess what? I'm 10 times more likely to take action in that state than I am if I'm in the lower frequencies. So I think what's really, really important is to be aware of where I am on any given day And you can use tools to elevate on purpose. So I listen to music. Music is a big one that I use to elevate on purpose. If I'm feeling some kind of way and I get up and dance around my living room a little bit and I listen to some songs that I really like, don't worry, I don't have a video right now. I get up in those upper frequencies, and that's when I make the calls. That's when I connect with people. So to be something can help you to align action, which is why you'll see me say, be your sales success, be love, be laser focused. You can create whatever bee you want to be, which is really cool. And I highly recommend it. And if you do it in sales, it's just a way to align action. So when I wake up in the morning, how do I feel? Maybe I need a little bit of motivation. Well, if I were motivated right now, what would I be doing? Maybe I would play some music. Maybe I would read something inspiring. Maybe I would reach out to somebody. One of my favorite things to do that elevates me like this is for me to reach out to people and just tell them how I see them in my eyes. That's like one of my favorite things to do. It's very authentic. It comes right from my heart, and it elevates me immediately. Now I can feel motivated. So I can be motivated. So being laser focused, Yvonne, oh my gosh, we had so much fun. We still have a lot of fun together, but she was a client of mine. And we did this 6-month sales sprint for her. She wanted to get she wanted to really increase her sales, and she had to 9x her sales in order to get the trip. And she did it. And the one thing she did was she created being laser focused, but what that looked like for her. If I tell you how to be laser focused and you don't create it for yourself, you won't do half the stuff. You'll be like, what? I'm not doing that. But if you create it for yourself, you're going to be much more likely, and you're going to have much more lasting results. So she did really, really well. Be courageous. So if you can, on purpose, add courage to the mix. I tell my clients when they start out with me, and anybody I can, that if you take one courageous action a day, you're going to get there. And that isn't courageous action to anybody else other than yourself. Courage happens when fear is present. That's it. So one courageous action a day. If you can infuse that in the direction of sales, right? Who's that person that you really want to talk to? Who's that person that you've been procrastinating talking to because you're not really quite sure if anything's going to happen from it, whatever the reason being. If you take one courageous step that way, and you make yourself do that every day, you keep yourself accountable to do that every day, it's amazing where you can be in a year. You can even be a speaker that way. That's what I did in engaging speakers. I would volunteer to go first. And I knew I wasn't going to sound good, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to go first because I'm afraid to. And that became a courageous step that I did. And I did that enough, and then pretty soon you find yourself speaking at many different networking groups and on Facebook Live, and you create a podcast because it's no longer a limit for you as you expand your comfort zone on purpose. So this is a really, one of my favorite is to be the authority. So I actually have 2 authorities back there that I thought about with this, and I had to add the word grateful to it. Working with Melinda, I'll never forget the day that she called me to talk about Grateful Connections and how she had created this amazing, she's like, it's Grateful Connections. And I'm like, That's you. That's so is everything about you. That's so authentic. And when people get together at Grateful Connections, what's going to happen? We're all going to feel grateful. And when everybody feels grateful and they do business in that state, I'm like, holy cow, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. And she did. And I had the honor of launching her first her first event as Grateful Connections. And it was such a great time. And I wanted to say being the authority too, because I remember April, when we first started working together, she was a little lonely. She was working her business with her husband and they were doing great, but it wasn't quite popping like she would have liked. And in our work together, she stepped into, being that authority and knowing what she was doing and really stepping into the shoes that all that experience had built. And when you step into that experience and you become the authority, it's so easy to share what you do. It's so easy to share what you do. Hearing you speak at Engaging Speakers in Libertyville, and you stepped into the networking and you shared about the networking. How many years of networking?
30.
Right, 30 years of networking. Like, we need this. And so I just want people to be able to step into their authority, be the incredible experience that you've built instead of the limits and the lies that our mind can tell us from time to time. And then I always say, as the authority, be the grateful closer. I would be honored to do business with you. Thank you for listening to me, right? Putting those simple words on purpose when you're closing business makes all of the difference. It makes all of the difference. It makes people feel good about choosing you. And it also opens up your heart and deepens your connection with your clients. So as many of you probably have heard me talking to you today, I'm not exactly a sales hustler or any of those things that we might think about salespeople, but I love to help people form really deep relational connections, ones that last, ones that you get to celebrate together. And if you can close and share that at the time you're closing somebody with business, that's what they'll remember about you. And then I get to expand, right? So it's the DARE process. So once you start doing this a little bit, you guys, you can expand. And you can start realizing you can dream a little bit bigger. And you could go for a bigger sales number. And you could do bigger things. So expand. Once you have that freedom and that confidence, you'll keep growing. All right, as my gift to you all today, thank you so much for having me out. And as my gift for you today, this is a free download to my 11 Secrets for Limitless Sales. If anybody is interested, I do offer a sales accelerator session for you today. There's some slips at your seats, so feel free to fill that out and I will definitely connect with you. Thank you so much. Good job.